Elijah's life at this time. And I think sometimes, how many sometimes feels like you get bombarded? And you got it coming from every angle. And you ain't dealing with just one thought. Come on. You ain't dealing with just one problem. You ain't got just one issue. Come on, somebody know what I'm talking about? How many knows when it comes like a flood, don't it? When it rains, yes it does. And sometimes the devil does them kind of set up so he holds some things back so he can punch you all at once. He don't want to hit you once, he wants to hit you from 3 different ways.
Right.
Amen?
Right.
And so I want us to look at a story here, and I want to look at it because it's a complicated story. You can hold off on the scripture. I don't want them up yet because I want to tell the story just a little bit before we get into this part of the story. I want to arrange it, and I want to put your mind where the story's at so that we can hopefully look at Elijah. And I want to look at him, and I want to break down some things about him because we should be able to identify with someone who's going through so many issues. Because sometimes we have a lot of issues, right? We've got issues on every hand. Anyway, Elijah, let's start the story out. He is dealing with a nation that is backslidden. And he goes out on Mount Carmel and he says, why wax ye between two opinions? Because we always know two opinions is what always gets you in that lukewarm stage. It's when you become double-minded or double-spirited. Amen?
Amen.
It's when you live one way in the church and you live another way. You know what I'm talking about?
That's right.
When you get that double-minded, when you think one way about God, you think another way about the world, and you make no clarity, and you try to live both. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You ride the fence. And he goes out there on Mount Carmel and he says, why wax ye between two opinions? And then, we see where they're backsliding because they're wrestling two opinions. They're thinking this way about God and they're thinking this way about the world. And we know as a church body, if we don't watch it, if we don't keep that inward man sharp, come on, and lathered up, we don't keep him anointed, it ain't long before we start thinking like the world, and then we have two opinions living on the inside of us.
Amen.
One minute we think church is important, the next minute we don't think it's that important. Now, come on, somebody.
That's right.
You know what I'm talking about? When we wax between two opinions, and then it starts crushing us on the inside, and then we start living in a lukewarm stage because we ain't got no focus. Come on, somebody. We ain't got no direction. We ain't got no vision because we're letting two things wrestle us down. And how many knows when you hold on to two things, you really ain't got neither one?
Amen.
Right? So he takes them and he says, listen. He says, while we wax between two opinions, he says, let the God that is God answer by fire. Right? We know the story. Oh, he calls down fire out of heaven. Right?
Right.
After he makes the altar and he puts out the sacrifice and he puts the water on top of the sacrifice, the Bible says the fire of God falls out of heaven and licks up even to the water. Now, what I want you to do is try to put yourself in this man's mindset. He comes off of Mount Carmel, and the Bible says he slays the 450 false prophets of Baal. And you can take this for what it's worth, but he put in a hard day's worth of work there after doing all this demonstration, all this praying, building the altar, and then killing the 450 false prophets of Baal. And then after all that, you can hear the bulletin go out and say, oh, there ain't been no prophet like this since Moses. What kind of prophet do we have amongst us now? Oh, yeah, there ain't no ministry like the ministry of Elijah, the man who brings fire out of heaven. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to put yourself in this man's mindset and how he comes down from the mountain and God answers through his situation and brings fire out of heaven. And he's thinking all this glorious stuff that's going on. And they're making him, bigger than life. Right? Right. Now, here's where the story starts. And here's where he becomes human. And here's where he becomes very complex. It starts in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 1. And it says, and Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Now, before we get too far into this, I want us to realize that Jezebel has come in with a spirit of deception. She has no authority, but she gains authority through manipulation. She's not the king. Ahab's the king, but she calls the shots. As the old saying is, she wires the pants. Okay? And she calls the shots. So she comes in and she takes a position that she don't have the right to have. And she manipulates Ahab's authority and uses it for her own gain. It's the spirit of Jezebel. And it goes a lot in. It's even in the church. Because she's moving into a position that's not supposed to be hers, and she gains it. And some of you go, oh, I can't believe the spirit of Jezebel. Some of you have it even in your own home, because when you take your little 3-year-old into the Walmart and you say you can't have that sucker, and it falls down on the floor and it sits there and throws a fit, you say, all right, get up, I'll get you the sucker. All of a sudden, who's got the authority in that situation?
Amen. Amen.
Come on now.
Right.
All of a sudden, we've turned roles here. They gain the authority, and we lose the authority because we let the wrong spirit work. It's called the spirit of Jezebel. Works in a position, in a place that it shouldn't. Come on now.
Amen.
You got to know what position and what authority you have, and you should. That's the reason women shouldn't try to take on the headship of the man. The headship of the man ain't mean we boss. Come on. That means we're just supposed to be the priest of the home. Right? That's a responsibility.
Right.
Come on. And you women ain't supposed to try to manipulate your way to get what you want. You're supposed to go to the Father. Come on now.
That's right.
You're supposed to go to the heavens. Huh? God, now you work on that man right there, and not you try to, gain authority through manipulation. Come on. And look what it says here in verse 2. We're going to go somewhere now. We're going to try to get in this man's shoes here just in a second, but we're going to read this thing as it comes. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, and saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. Now, so what she does, she sends out a threat. Now, she puts this pressure of a threat on Elijah. Now, what I want you to get here is, here's where it starts getting perplexed with Elijah, and here's where I think we need to identify with him, and I'm sure everybody here can identify with this. He's had this great victory, and you'd think he was a great conqueror, and he did a great work, but what I want you to understand, he spent all of his energy, he spent all of his strength, he gave everything he had up on Mount Carmel. Now here's what I want you to understand, is he's sitting here and he hears it. Now look what he says here in verse 3. I want you to get this right here. And he says, and when Elijah saw that, it means in his imagination he saw what she said, he arose and went for his life, talking about Elijah. And he came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. Now, we want to take something right here. What I want you to see here is he went up on Mount Carmel. He had this great victory, and this story is all hooked together because Jezebel gives him no chance to breathe. And he's just come down from the victory. Ahab, the king, runs to who? Jezebel. And he tells Jezebel says, you go tell Elijah by this time tomorrow, if the gods hadn't done to him what he done to them, then let them kill me. So he puts this threat out on Elijah. Now here's where I want you to see where Elijah's at. Elijah's went up on Mount Carmel to turn the hearts of the people. He gives all he has to that moment, that time. He builds this altar. He makes these sacrifices. Then he turns around and he slays all 450 false prophets of Baal. And he's expended all of his energy. And now here, the head of the snake is left. And now she's coming for him. Okay? And he looks at Jezebel's been a whole lot more trouble than the 450 false prophets of Baal, because they're just hand-me-downs. She's the real deal, okay? She's the head. They wasn't. They were just body parts. And he realizes in his head the real monster is still left, and now she's coming for me, and I ain't even had a breather, and by tomorrow this time she's going to have my life. And he's sitting here thinking, I'm exhausted. I've gave everything. And he's sitting here thinking in his head, I have nothing left inside of me to give. Has anybody ever been there? Amen. To where you feel like the devil won't leave you alone, and he's done jumped on you, and you done fought him off, and then when you get done fighting him off, a bigger problem arises, and you feel like there ain't nothing left in you to even face it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I want you to get to where he was at. It wasn't that he didn't have faith. It wasn't that he wasn't a man of God. It wasn't that he wasn't a champion. It was that he expended everything, and he said, there's nothing left in me to give. And he's sitting here thinking, God, I can't face her because there ain't nothing left in me. I gave it all on Mount Carmel, and there ain't nothing else left to give. And some of you sitting under the sound of my voice, you're tired of fighting the battle. You're weary. You're tired of fighting the addiction. You're tired of fighting in the marriage. You're tired of fighting the finances. You feel like there's nothing left. And the give up is, I'm tired of fighting. I said the give up is, I'm tired of fighting. There's nothing left in me. And so after him being weary weary and him being battle torn and him giving all that he had. And she's sitting here I'm giving you a time that I'm not going to let you rest up. I'm not going to give you no break. By this time tomorrow, see, she put a time limit on to let him know he ain't going to have time to recover. He ain't going to have time to rest up. I'm getting you by tomorrow. I'm sending out the threat. And anybody here ever had a threat to rest on you? The threat will sin because they want to control. Like some wives threaten their husband, I'm going to leave you because I'm not happy. And the threat ain't because they love. The threat's because they want control.
Right. True.
Because love don't act that way.
Amen.
Love's supposed to be unconditional. The reason people threat is because they want control. Y'all getting quiet in here. That's the reason the bank will file bankruptcy on your house, because they won't.
That's right.
And it feels like a threat. That's the reason you got to watch how you threat, because you'll come under the spirit of Jezebel.
Right.
Because you're trying to manipulate. You're trying to gain control. It's not out of love. It's out of...
True.
You're not working out of love. You're telling yourself, oh, I'm going to try to straighten them out. And you're trying to tell yourself that you're doing it because you love them. But it ain't because you love them. It's because you want
Control.
Amen.
the spirit of Jezebel. And she's sitting here saying, you're not turning up my apple cart. You're not tearing down my kingdom. I done put too much work in all these false prophets. I about got rid of Jehovah. I about got rid of his name. I about got rid of his worship. I about run all the Christians out. I about got right where I wanted. And all of a sudden this Elijah pops up out of nowhere and kills 450 prophets that I've raised up. Oh, I don't think so. We're going to get control of this situation. I'm going to send out a death threat. And it gets very complicated with Elijah, because he's sitting here thinking, I just had the greatest victory of my whole life, and I'm facing the greatest battle I've ever had.
Amen.
Now I got the head on me. Now I got her breathing on me. Now she's coming after my life. And now I've done wore myself out, and I've done gave all I had to that situation. I done gave all. Anybody here ever went and you just felt like you didn't have no more to give? You didn't have no more to give to the marriage. You didn't have no more to give to the finances. You didn't have no more to give to your mind. You didn't have no more to give to that situation. It just wore you down.
Good word.
And see, Elijah now is moving into a state of depression because he don't know what to do. This great man that went on top of Mount Carmel and called down fire and stood in the gap for the people and turned their hearts back to worshiping their God, Jehovah. And now here he's broken down and he feels like there ain't no more in me to spend. I ain't got no more to give. And he's wrestling between where he's at in life and what he's got facing him. And he feels like, oh, there ain't nothing left to do but to give up. And he moves into a state of depression. A state of depression is where you don't see no way out.
Right.
I don't see no way. I don't see no place for joy. I don't see no place for victory. I don't see. And here, this great man that God has used so wondrously is at this place to where he's wanting to give up, and he's moving into a state of depression to where he says, now I've done gave all I had on Mount Carmel, and now the greatest fight ahead of me is before me, and she ain't giving me no time to rest up. She ain't giving me no time to pray. I can't create me a prayer club and join together with 3 or 4 more. She ain't giving me no time to figure this out. She ain't giving me no break. She ain't giving me no rest. She's threatening me and telling me I got a 24-hour clock ticking on me. Look what it says here in verse 4. But he himself, what a day's journey. Now here he is, he's running. Oh, I'm going to go a day away from her. If I can get a day away from her, I can put a day between us, and if that day takes me a day to get there, then maybe I'll get out of that 24-hour clock. At least I can make a prophecy wrong. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Exhausted. He said, what a day's journey into the wilderness. Well, that dry place, that empty place, went in that wilderness place. He didn't go into that fruitful place. He didn't go where the land was flowing with milk and honey. He didn't go where the honey barrel was tipped over. He went in that dry, empty, lonely, dark place where there seemed like there ain't no world. That isolated place, that place the devil tries to drive you to. Here he is running into isolation. He leaving his servant behind him. He's running for all he's got, and he's running all alone. And he feels like he has no hope. He feels like he has no future. He feels like he has nobody to cling to. He feels like he's all alone, and he's running to this place where he's isolated himself, because the devil always tries to push you into isolation.
True.
He'll always try to run you from people. You'll feel like you can't connect with nobody. Nobody can't identify with you. Everybody will look down on me. I can't tell nobody my problems. I can't share with nobody. I can't pray with nobody. You feel like you're all alone because you disgraced yourself. You've degraded yourself. You feel you have give up on yourself, and now you're disappointed in yourself, and you don't even want to share what you're going through with nobody else, because you don't want nobody else to feel about you how you feel about you. I don't even want to talk about me. I'm so disgusted with myself. I'm so disappointed in myself. I don't even want to share this with nobody. Give me a day's journey away from me. Put me all by myself. Put me in a wilderness. Let me get isolated. I don't want to be around nobody. I want to be all by myself. I want to soak in this depression. I don't want to be around nobody because I don't even like who I am. They don't want to praise me because I just brought fire down from heaven, but I feel gutless. They don't want to adore me, but I have shamed myself because I'm scared of some woman that controls the king.
Right.
You know how them one women are. There's usually one woman in every... Don't go down that road. Says, and he came and he sat under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die. And said, it is enough. I'm tired. I gave all I got. There ain't nothing left in me. It's enough, God. Take my life. I'm done. Just the day before, the Jerusalem press said, prophet brings fire out of heaven. Nation turns the heart back to God. And this next day, kill me, God.
Amen.
Anybody else in here felt like your life was a roller coaster ride?
That's right.
Ups and downs. Sometimes the devil ain't going to give you a break and let you feel good about the things that God has done in your life, because he's going to keep the heat on you. Now, whether y'all believe this or not, but Elijah couldn't rejoice in the victory that he done on Mount Carmel because Jezebel wasn't going to give him the breath to have it with.
Right.
She's saying, I ain't giving you the time of day, big boy. And sometimes the devil will stand in front of you and say, you got a fight on your hand.
That's right.
You got a fight on your hand. Elijah knew one thing. I got a fight on my hand. Because this woman means business. She'll die for her cause.
That's right.
And she has control.
Right.
And she has the kingdom on her side. And she has the king deceived. And it's all railing down against me. And when she speaks, I know all that backs her up. Here in his mind, he's probably confused. He's perplexed. He's sitting here thinking, I just brought the greatest victory to Israel, and now they turned their hearts back to God, and now I'm running for my life because this wicked woman is coming for me for all that she's got, because she knows if she takes me out, it's all going to turn right back around like it was. So she's coming after me. I know I'm her target. She knows I'm the one that just brought down her ministry. She knows I'm the one that just come against her, all that she has built up, and now she's coming after me. That's why some of you in here get in ministry and see how much the devil gets messing with your business. Some of you think you have a fight on your hand. You just come to church. Get in ministry and see what happens.
That's right.
Get in ministry, it'll come from every direction. Because you're changing lives. You're being an influence. Your impartation is being affected in other people. And what God is putting in you, He's using you to put into them. Oh, you get in ministry and you got a fight on your hands. This is enough! Now, oh Lord, take away my life! Because this place, at least he had the integrity to run from her and said, listen, God, if anybody kills me, let it be you. Don't let her kill me. She's coming for me, God, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to resist her. I don't know how I'm going to be able to fight her. I don't know how I'm going to defeat her. All I see is her killing me in my mind. My imagination is done with her. I'm been overwhelmed by fear. I don't know how to exercise my faith. I already feel defeated inside. So, God, if anything happens, I'm running from her so that I can run to you. So that if I'm going to die by your hand and not hers. Don't let me be a mockery. Don't let me be a disgrace. If I'm going to die, let it be by your hand. Yep. He's wrestling all this. We don't know which way to go. Confused, frustrated, depressed, disappointed. Ashamed of himself. And he's just telling God, I'm out of gas. Got no more to give. Got no more to give. I don't know about y'all, but it's a lot better seeing myself ride in the car than pushing the car.
Amen.
And what he's seen was, I didn't run out of gas. I ain't riding in the car no more. I'm pushing the car.
That's right.
Look what it says here in verse 11. And God said to him, go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and a strong wind rent the mountains, and brake it in pieces, the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. Now I want you to see something here, because God is showing something here. Because Elijah's went up on top of the mountain and he's prayed down God into the situation. And he told God on top of Mount Carmel, bring down fire. And so what Elijah had seen was God work in the situation. And because Elijah prayed and God worked in the situation, it turned all the hearts of the people. And so Elijah's got it fixated in his mind that the work's going to be done by God, by how God moves in the situation. But God says, I'm going to move you to a greater revelation than me moving into the situation. Because I'm going to show you something right here, Elijah, where you're running, where you're scared and you're fearful, and you think I got to show up in the situation, I'm going to show you something new and fresh. Now look what he goes on to say here in verse 12. He says, and after the earthquake, a fire. And the fire, we seen where God brought it down. And Elijah thought God was really working in the fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. He says, after the fire, though, a still. Oh, my goodness. All this running. All this hiding, all this depression, all this disappointment. God saying, Elijah, I'm just moving you to a new level. You knew me as a God that would work in the situation. You read where I touched through the rod of Moses and moved the Red Sea back. You seen where I come forth and I used destruction against the people of Egypt and Pharaoh. You've seen in the past where I have worked through situations, but I'm taking you to another level, Elijah. I'm not going to work in the situation. I'm going to work in you. I'm going to show you there's a new impartation, that I'm not a God that just works in the situation, but I'm a God that's going to show up inside of you. I'm going to be that small, still voice. I'm going to be able to say your words. I'm you, because my small, still voice, and then the enemy ain't going to be able to plague you with fear. Then the enemy ain't going to be able to captivate your imagination. I'm going to put my small, still voice down the inside of you, and then there's going to be a shield that protects around about you. You're going to feel my comfort. You're going to feel my strength. You're going to feel my joy. You're going to feel my peace. You're going to feel my healing. You're going to feel my strength. You're going to know that I'm the great I am. I'm not going to show up in the fire. I'm not going to show up in the situation. I'm going to show up inside of you. Somebody say, yeah!
Yeah.
How many knows that sometimes when you're at your weakest is when God arises?
Amen.
Where he says, they are that are weak, let them say.
That's right.
Let them that are poor say.
That's right.
I remember one time on a Wednesday night, we were to have church. And I got ready and I was so wore out. I'd worked all day long physically. And I'm like, I'm just wore out. Boy, this is going to be hard. That's all I could do to get home and get ready and eat and take a shower and get here. And I come in here and I just felt like a wore out wet rag. And I sat there and I said, God, I ain't even got 10% of my strength. But I said, Lord, the strength I got, I'm going to give to you. And out of my weakness came perfect praise. I said, out of my weakness, he showed up. Out of my vulnerability, he showed up. When I was almost down for a count, he showed up. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. When you feel like you ain't got enough strength to make another step. When you feel like you've been defeated for the last time. You've been knocked out for the count. There's something inside of you that still cries out, you're my fortress. You're my mighty high tower. You're the Lord that fights my battles. You're my shield. You're my counselor, my coach, my present help in the time of need. And there's something inside of you that says, greater is he. When you've depleted all your strength, when you've depleted all your resources, when you feel like there's nothing left to you, you're at the perfect place for God to show up. Because you know when it happened this time, it had nothing to do with you. Greater is he that is in me than Jezebel that is in the world. Come on, sing it. Come on, somebody lift your hands. All right, sit down. I ain't done preaching. We got 17 more minutes.
Hallelujah.
I ain't taking this with me. I'm leaving all this here. Because I know I'm not the only one. It felt like they had nothing else to give. They ain't nothing left in me. It felt like there wasn't nothing in you worthy to even stand before God. I know there's somebody else in here that's been in the place Elijah was in where you said, God, if you could just kill me.
That's right.
let me be finished. But God wants to say, I'll do exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or think, according. Here's the trump to that verse. According to the power. According to the power that worketh in you. You might have done used up all your strength. You might have done used up all your resources. You might have come to the end of your rope with your thinking. But the great I am is creating a platform for him to make his entrance. And he's getting ready to step into your situation and show you that he's the great I am. Is there anybody in here that's ready for God to show up? They'll label you, they'll title you. Oh! Yeah, that's probably what they said about Elijah. He's peculiar, he's different, he's radical. Who else calls fire out of heaven? This man from another world, this prophet that has power to move God to bring fire out of heaven. What Elijah looked at as defeat was just a journey with God. And God's just showing Elijah, I'm going to give you another mindset. I'm going to give you a different way of looking at this. You've always seen me to show up in the situation, but I'm going to bring you to a place to where you give me that last part of you that has always been weak. I'm going to get you in a place with that part of you that's always been vulnerable. I'm going to bring that part of you that you ain't gave to me to a place of submission, to a place of surrender. That part of you that you hid from me. Oh yeah, I'm going to use the test. I'm going to use the trial. I'm going to use the enemy. I'm going to use Jezebel to draw this out of you. I'm going to bring you to a place to where you give me your weakness, to where you give me your fears. You give me your insecurities. Yes. Yeah. Because see, the place on the mountain that brought the fire down made Elijah famous.
Right.
No man like this man of God. Ain't nobody got a ministry like him.
Amen.
And sometimes people will follow your gift. They don't still know who you are.
That's right.
But God said, come on over here, Elijah. I'm not worried about the gift. I put it there. It's this other stuff that you got hidden inside of you that nobody else knows is there. That insecurity in you that you hide through how you preach loud. Oh, yeah, I did say that. Oh, yeah, that part of you that's weak in there that you hide from everybody else. So you look strong in the middle of the dilemma. You look strong in the middle of the battle. That part of you that you hid from me. I'm going to use Jezebel to bring that out of you. Because I know you'll come to me with it. Because I want to pull that root out of you. I'm tired of living in there. I'm going to tie depression around you, and I'm going to tie depression around your weakness. I'm going to tie depression around your sorrow, and I'm going to get you to a place where you give up on you so that you'll give it to me. Because when you come to me, I'm going to tear it all out. And I'm going to put a small steel voice in you that's going to call you into the demon, that's going to call you out of your weakness, and it's going to call you into your destiny. Yeah! that road. He left his servant behind. And the reason he left his servant behind is because his servant wasn't worth taking with him. The servant that he had was baggage. And he said, I got too much to endure. I got too much to carry. I can't carry you with me because you're baggage. You're extra weight. You don't minister to me, you need me to minister to you. Because see, in the Bible, the way they do it is the head don't minister down. The bottom ministers up. That's how it works in the Bible. That's how you keep me ministered up.
Right.
And you're supposed to minister to me, and I'm supposed to minister up. I ain't supposed to be really ministering down. Not when we work in a leadership body. You're supposed to undergird me. You're supposed to lift me up. You're supposed to pray for me. You're supposed to encourage me. Not bring me all the dragging, all the trying to get me out of the presence, trying to get me out of the anointing. You're supposed to be saying, if the pastor's got a problem that I can solve, I'm going to go solve it. I'm not going to weigh him down with it. So he leaves the servant behind. Okay? Look what he goes on to say right here go to verse 19. Would you go to verse 19? Chapter 19, verse 19. Said he, so he departed thence and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 oxen. He got him a worker. Oh yeah, he spotted him away. Because Elijah was looking for him, and he said, there's the one I want right there. He's a worker. He's got it in him. Oh yeah. I'll give him the principles and he'll put them to work. Yeah, that's right. I said, yeah, he can stand this hot sun. He can handle the pressure. Right? And he said, who was plowing with 12 oxen, yoke of oxen before him, and he with the 12. And Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. Because God's getting ready to do a new thing in Elijah. Elijah had been there demonstrating how God works in situations and how he was going to move the hearts of people. And God now is going to take him and make him a mentor. Going to elevate him up. Says, Elijah, now I'm not going to just get you to draw people unto me. Now I'm going to get you to lay your hands on somebody and you're going to mentor them. And Elisha said, I want a double portion. So I'm going to deposit Elijah into Elisha, and Elisha's going to do double what Elijah did. So God's always trying to elevate us. God's always trying to take us to a new level. And see, what God was wanting to put inside of Elisha to get Elisha to the place where he could have a double portion of it what Elijah had, them weak things that was inside Elijah had to go. God said, I'm going to put my small, still voice inside of you. Elijah, I ain't going to just show up in the situation. I'm going to show up inside of you. And I'm going to be that small, still voice that's inside of you. And I'm going to quicken your spirit to where you'll know when your imagination is going the wrong way, so that you don't see what a Jezebel wants to say. I'm going to put my small, still voice inside of you, so that when you have to combat the false prophets of Baal, there'll be a steadfastness inside of you that's unbreakable. I'm going to put a small, still voice in you that's going to secure you out of your insecurities. I'm going to put a small, still voice inside of you that's going to give you peace where before you've been troubled. I'm going to put a small, still voice inside of you that's going to cause you to be raised up. And you're going to take what I put inside of you and you're going to deposit it inside of another called Elisha. And he's going to do double what you've done. And the legacy you have is going to live on because you're going to put it inside of him because of what I put in you. A lot of Christians find themselves weary because they see God from the wrong perspective.
Amen.
They see God moving in the situation and not God moving in them. We see where even though God moved for Elijah in his situation, he was still vulnerable to the enemy's attack. And God gives us a revelation in this story saying, where you shore yourself up at ain't when you look for me to move in the situation. It's when you look for my small, still voice. Because it's my small, still voice that's going to be the author and the finisher of your faith. It's this small, still voice that I want to deposit down inside of you that's going to help you be steadfast during the storm. Where it's going to make you where you're not insecure. Where you ain't weighted down by the depression. Where you're not moved by the situation. See, if you want the situation to fix you, then the situation can always manipulate you. The situation can always tell you what mood you should be in. But when you get past the saying, I want God to move in the situation to where I want God to move inside of me, then you get in a whole nother world. See, some of you just want God to show up in your situation, and as soon as He fixes that situation and the next situation gets messed up, you're back where you was at.
That's right.
And if fire coming out of heaven doesn't fix you on the inside after fixing the situation, then nothing in the situation is going to heal you. And some of you say, if I can make more money, if I had a better marriage, yeah, if I had better health, well, if I was raised better, if my past just didn't worry me, if I didn't have a bad perspective of myself, if I just wasn't insecure. Well, see, we'll talk about our situation and let our situation downgrade us. And then if we don't want, we need to get to the place where we say, God, I don't want you to show up in my marriage. I want you to show up in me. God, I don't want you to show up in my finances. I want you to show up in me. God, I don't want you to show up in my power. I want you to show up in me. God, I want that small, still voice. How many times has He showed up for you?
That's right.
And the real fix is when He gets you. And you quit saying, God, if this would happen, you start saying, where are you at, God? I need your voice. I need your wisdom. I need your joy. I need your peace. I need your rest. I need your, anybody know what I'm talking about? I need your presence. The journey's always going to have troubles. The journey's always going to have trials. But if God, I said, but if God be for me, there's always going to be a car breaking down. There's always somebody going to be laid off at the job. There's always going to be somebody running out of gas on the side of the road. There's going to be always somebody's going to be ugly to us. There's always going to be a storm. There's always going to be a battle. There's always going to be frustrations. There's always going to be issues. I'm complex. I'm wonderfully and skillfully made. I gotta have that small, still. I'm always gonna be fighting in a fight. Does anybody know cancer. I feel something in this place. The count of three, I want you to raise your hand if you say, Pastor, I want to pray that this small, still voice shows up in my life. I need this small, still voice to tell me how to raise my children. I need this small, still voice to tell me how to be a mate in my marriage. I need this small, still voice to tell me how to handle my money. I need this small, still voice to tell me how to handle my problems. One. Count of three, I want you to raise your hand if you're ready. That small, still voice to wake up in your life. Take you to the next level of life. Two. Oh, sometimes he'll rock you to sleep at night. Three. Stand to your feet with me. Give me a moment. I'm very passionate about this. Y'all overlook me if my emotions get the best of me. Because that small, still voice has got me out of so many dilemmas. When I didn't even like me. When I was frustrated with me. When I gave up on my situation, when I felt tired, felt like throwing the towel in, telling God I don't want to fight no more. This small, still voice would take the frailty, the weakness, the vulnerability of Randy and talk to me. When I didn't feel like a good husband, when I didn't feel like a good pastor, when I didn't feel like a good person, when I felt frustrated, when I felt like I went to the ends of my faith, when I felt like there was no options left, I felt like I'd done everything that I crossed every T, dotted every I, and I felt like I was at the end of my road, there would be this small, still voice. And when I felt I should have went to the cross, he crowned me and put me on the throne. That small, still voice is going to wake up spiritual giants in this place today. There's a small, still voice that's going to rescue your soul. You've been wrestling depression long enough. You've been fighting anxiety long enough. You've been frustrated long enough. You've been disappointed in yourself long enough. There's a small, still voice. It's going to be the anchor to our soul. If you would, don't you raise your hands high, bow your heads and close your eyes, and we're going to say this together. And some of you can say it as passionately as I say it. Because sometimes I express what I feel by how I speak. Say, Lord Jesus!
Lord Jesus,
My Savior!
my Savior,
My hero!
my hero,
My Lord!
my Lord,
Let your small, still voice speak into my midnight Jesus, let your small, still voice be the anchor to my life. Now celebrate it. Sing it. ready to break out. Count of three, I want you to give out a shout. Now listen, I want you to shout because God's taking you to the next level. I want you to shout because God's voice is going to speak to that weakness that's inside of you. Come on now. Ah, yeah, God's going to undergird your loins. God's going to do that work that's not seen. God's going to come in and do an inside job. He's going to show up what you kept hidden in the closet. That part of you that you could never get under control.
Hallelujah.
That part of you could never fix. That addiction that you could never overcome. Goes up in this place. Yeah! That part of you that felt insecure. That part of you that felt disappointed. There's a small, still voice. Count of three. I want you to celebrate your victory. show up inside of me.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Present help. Present help. In the time of need. He carries my sorrows. He takes away my pain. He abolishes my shame. Come unto me. All ye that are heavy laden. I'll give you rest. For my yoke is easy. My burden is light. Oh yeah, come and learn of me, saith the Lord. Woo! Yeah! Now listen, on the count of three, when you celebrate, you tell God you're rejoicing because you know His small, still voice is going to let you see yourself as He sees you. Our biggest problem is how we see ourselves. Because we'll kick ourselves, we'll beat ourselves up. Why'd I say that? Why'd I do that for? Here I've come and fell again. I've got weak. Here I am, back doing what I said I'd never do. Here I am, acting up again. Here I am. And it's how we see ourselves. We got to learn how to see ourselves like He sees us. Because our hope ain't in our strength. Because when we see ourselves in our disappointments, then that means we're disappointed because we was always leaning on our strength. You got to get rid of that. Because we can't make it on our strength. What we got to do is start seeing Him as He sees us. And then when we see ourselves as He sees us, He can deposit unto us His power, His strength. Then we can walk in what He gives us instead of who we have been. And then we can get away from our weaknesses. We can get away from our addictions. We can break our strongholds because greater is He.
Hallelujah.
We count to three. I want you to celebrate because you got victory today. Got a new set of eyes looking at you. You got a new voice speaking out of you. Come on now. One. I feel something coming out of this place. Somebody's going to get your victory right here.
Hallelujah.
Somebody's going to get your joy back.
That's right.
Somebody's going to get your self-esteem back. Somebody's going to get your right mind back. Two. I feel something in this house. I feel breakthrough. I feel breakthrough. I feel breakthrough. Three.
Hallelujah.
I am a celebrator. I was greater than He that is in me. Drop up the was walking through there, I'm going to lay my hands on you. And there's an anointing on me that's going to get on you. Because there is greater is he that's in you. But God told me to tell you to speak to your mountains. When he was in the New Testament, Jesus told his disciples, said, speak to the mountain. Oh! Speak to him. And it's got to go. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go.
Yes, hallelujah.
Somebody raise your hands right where you at. I'm going to give you a closing prayer. Father God, we thank you for what we felt here. And what you have surely deposited inside of us. And what you have stirred up inside of us. That small, still voice that is moving us forward in life. How it's searching our heart and it's strengthening us and it's making a way where there seemeth not to be a way. We thank you, Lord, for your word. That lights our path, speaks to our hearts, and calls us to go forward to be overcomers.
Yes,
In
Lord.
Jesus' mighty name we pray. And everybody say,
Amen.
thank you for coming. See you next